Ray Collins rose to prominence, attributing their fundamentals of tackling and blocking that they learned at Permian for their future success.
What we did in those 2 years was set the table for Gene Mayfield. He didn't come into a bunch of slugs that didn't know how to block and tackle. He had football players there.
Borger's Gene Mayfield would often scout Permian when they played up in the Panhandle against Amarillo Tascosa and was intrigued about the opening. Mayfield was hired to replace Cashion, and Permian had their man.
On the field, he was the leader and the commander, you know. I mean, I think that's correct. Everybody just looked up to him.
The Monaghan Sandhills State Park has been compared to the Sahara Desert due to its 200 square miles of powdery sand, but it was no walk in the park for the Permian Panthers in the 1965 season, who voluntarily showed up in the summer to get into shape for Gene Mayfield's off-season conditioning program.
Running up and down the sandhills was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in all of my training, including everything at Arkansas.
The Monaghan Sandhills was a training program that was voluntary. Your feet would sink down with shoes on, and running up and down those hills, of course coming down was a lot easier than going up. It turned out to be a bonding experience. But
I remember running until I felt like I just couldn't run anymore. We had no idea what we were getting into, you know. We just thought it might be fun, you know, but it wasn't much fun.
It strengthened their legs a little bit, but probably most of all, it strengthened their reserve.
Panthers on three! 1, 2, 3, Panthers!
The Panthers defeated Tascosa in Week 1 14-6, but dropped the defensive battle with Lubbock Monterey 7-6 the following week. Permian responded with a 27-6 victory over El Paso Eastwood, and then rattled off 7 straight wins, including a hard-fought 8-7 victory over San Angelo Central. This defensive showdown came down to a faked conversion that place kicker David Byerly wasn't even aware of.
Larry Walsh, the holder, would bring the tee and a little leather strap in that he would give me so I could tie my toe up. They centered the ball, Larry puts it on the tee, and I get a bead on it. I bet I wasn't that far from the football, and he just jerks it out from under me. My plant leg come about that high off the ground, okay? And I went almost flat on my back. And there Larry went, throws the ball to Tony Connolly, and 2 points, and that's the ball game.
A 35-8 victory over Odessa put the Panthers into the postseason for the first time since 1960. The District Bell was coming back to Permian for the first time since that second season, and Odessa High quarterback Larry Gatlin of Country Music Hall of Fame dropped off the bell at PHS during a pep rally along with some of his Broncos co-captains. Gatlin was the quarterback, and the bell, along with that crosstown rivalry helmet, would not return to OHS for over 3 decades.
Everybody strove to have that championship bell, and then we'll paint the carriage the color of their school, and for the next year you had the bell until the district champion was decided the next year. And to have Gatlin be the one that came over. Larry had gone to junior high with a lot of the players on our team.
Rare footage shot by the McCord family shows 8mm film in color as Permian defeated El Paso Bel Air 14-7 in the bi-district round.
The coaches, they scouted the other team and they had us prepared well. And honestly, I think that was one of the toughest playoff games we had was with El Paso Bel Air.
We were foot to foot, and all we wanted was first downs. First downs were nearly as important as touchdowns.
The Panthers avenged the earlier season loss to Lubbock Monterey with a 29-12 victory in the quarterfinals. Permian outscored Texarkana 28-21 in the state semifinals before squaring off with San Antonio Lee for the state title. Glenn Halsell, Billy Dale, and Richard Denard were all state players who were instrumental in the team's success. Permian won 11-6 in San Angelo against Lee and were crowned state champions.
We were able to cobble together a 13-1 season and win that first state championship for Permian. It started that long 30-plus year run in which Permian dominated much of high school football.
It was a great step in my life to come to Permian and have all the wonderful players and fans, and of course winning the first championship of my career. Winning that first one was a big deal.
The Permian Panthers only lost to one team the next 2 seasons in 1966 and 67, the Abilene Cooper Cougars, led by quarterback Jack Mildren.
Cooper was fantastic in nearly every facet of the game. They had a great defense. They very well coached offensively.
In fact, in the 1967 loss to the Cougars, Mojo was born as Permian alumni rolled their arms on Mo and threw their arms for Joe.
You would get goosebumps when you'd hear that in the stands.
When we heard it on the field, we knew we had the backing of the cheerleaders, the Pepette squad, the band. We had a great band, and the community.
With only one team reaching the playoffs from each district, Permian missed the postseason in '67 once again as Cooper scored 495 points, but one shy in a 21-20 loss to Austin Reagan for the state title. In 1968, Permian lost their opener to Amarillo-Tascosa 21-13, but in Week 2, the Panthers shut out the Cooper Cougars 6-0 to avenge the losses from the previous 2 seasons. Permian cruised through their 9-team district, shutting out their first 4 opponents. In the state semifinals, Permian was tied with Houston Smiley at 0 at halftime when the Permian band spelled out Mojo for the first time instead of PHS, which electrified the Panthers to 22 unanswered points. Permian would outscore their playoff opponents 79-27, leading up to a state title game against Austin Reagan. However, the Raiders flexed their muscles again versus the Little Southwest Conference, defeating Permian 17-11. Reagan was back-to-back national champions in '67 and '68. The 1969 Panthers dropped a 21-7 decision to Cooper in Week 2. Despite scoring 297 points in the regular season, Permian was left out of the playoffs. In 1970, Gene Mayfield's offense rolled up 425 points, the most in school history. Big wins over Cooper, Midland Lee, San Angelo Central, and Odessa High highlighted the season. Old High of Wichita Falls gave Permian a scare in Week 1 of the playoffs, but the Panthers held on for a 22-19 victory. Permian rolled over Arlington High, Palo Duro, and Dallas South Oak Cliff by a combined total of 72-19. Once again, Austin Reagan stood in the way of a state championship for the Panthers. The key play in the state final in 1970 was when Panthers quarterback Ben Montgomery tried to pitch the ball to either Jamie Berryhill or Daniel Justice. But Raiders defender Scotty Center broke the line and caught the ball in mid-flight, racing about 30 yards for a touchdown.
The tackle had come down, so I pulled it out of the fullback's belly and did the pitch. And they actually had a guy lined up wrong, and he had blitzed in between me and the guy that was supposed to receive the pitch and never broke stride and made a touchdown.
Just caught it in midair.
Intercepted a pitch out. People will ask where I'm from and finally get down to when I graduated, and oh yeah, that was the game that had the pitch out. And so yeah, thankfully we're all getting old and a lot of us have died and people mention it less, but.
We had a halfback option pass, and Collins Rice threw the ball, but he threw it about 100 yards straight up in the air, and I was running backwards, and I failed and hit my head, and I still caught the ball. I'll never forget that.
Reagan handed Permian a tough 21-14 loss.
We were disappointed that we did not win that game.
That would also be the final game for Panthers head coach Gene Mayfield, who would step down with a 62-10 record with 2 ties.
He's a father figure, but he had an aura about him. And when he walked into the room, you paid attention.
I coached with him for 14 years, and never one time did I ever hear him raise his voice. Just a super motivator, a quality guy in every respect.
Gil Bartosh replaced Mayfield in 1971, and the Panthers didn't skip a beat. Long before the oilfield undertaker rocked the Permian Basin, the owner of BCM and Associates, Ben Montgomery, was calling out audibles under Gene Mayfield, who said leaving Permian was his biggest mistake after that 1970 season.
It was last year, and the year before, I think Coach Mayfield had an opportunity to go up to Andrews, and he talked to us prior to the season about that decision he made and decided to stay. 100% devoted to his program. Yeah, we're very proud of our accomplishments, the school's accomplishments, all these teams over the years that have showed tradition.
In 2005, Gene Mayfield was installed in the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. The team gathered for that.
This football is autographed by all of us that were At the 40-year reunion of the football team, I wanted everybody to autograph one for Coach Mayfield. A few of the players who were deceased, we even have their names on the football because they were all part of that team.
It was fabulous, and we get together when we can. We're a pretty tight-knit group.
We go to Mayfield's induction. He announces to us in a team huddle that he has Alzheimer's. I didn't think everybody could talk, and I said, "So, Coach, does that mean you forgot everything I screwed up?" And he's turned around and said, "Absolutely not."